Hello, peace be with you. I'm starting a series dealing with the responsibilities of Muslims in Western societies, Western Muslims, to be clear about what we are targeting here when it comes to a very important topic. And when we speak about Western Muslims, we are speaking about Muslims living as religious minorities, but not as having a minority citizenship. There is nothing like minority citizenship. We have to understand the point here. What does it mean when we deal with being Western Muslims? Mean something which is essential for us. I have been writing about this and talking about it for the last 40 years and writing about it at the end of the 80s, the beginning of the 90s, when I wrote Muslims in Secular Societies, and dealing with the new environment within which we are as Muslims in the West. And then I wrote another book in 96 called To Be a European Muslim. And this is also something which is dealing with the reality. So secular societies, European Muslim, and then Western Muslims and the future of Islam, targeting the challenges that we are facing being and living in the West and being Westerners. And this is something which is essential in our understanding of our identity, living in the West, being Westerners, and having to deal with new issues when it comes to our presence in the West. So I've been talking about this for years now, and then my book, What I Believe, was also dealing with the challenges that we are facing, and especially the challenges that we are facing for the two generations to come. This is what I was saying. Things are not going to change very quickly. Things are going even to be worse for us within the short-term realities, and this is what we are witnessing today when it comes to far-right parties everywhere, populists talking about Islam and reducing the Islamic presence to something which is alien to the so-called Judeo-Christian civilization. And when we speak about Islam, we mainly speak about immigration, speak about insecurity because it has to do with violence, and also the great replacement, meaning that the Western societies are going to change and they are not part of the cultural history and the cultural setting of West countries. And this is something which is quite important for us to understand when it comes to our reality here, and in which way we have to deal with it, and in which way we also have to deal with this reality. So I hope that you are hearing me well right now. So let me know if this is okay and that you are hearing what I'm saying right now. So I think that what is important for us is really to understand which are the challenges that we are facing living in the West, and in which way we have to deal with these realities and how we have to deal with it, and how we have to change our mindset when it comes to the reality or the daily realities that we are facing. So over the years, I have been dealing with the nature of our identity, the reality of what it means to be a Western Muslim, and how we have to be faithful to our principles as Muslim, and faithful and understanding the reality, the surrounding reality, the societies within which we are living, be it in the United States of America or European countries, or in Australia or in Canada, wherever we are, and even in some African countries when we are a minority from a religious viewpoint. The first thing that we have to say here is that very quickly some scholars and even some activists were saying, oh, you know what, it's completely new, this situation, Muslims living as minority. And very often we were following in the footsteps of the Orientalists when they were saying, oh, it's a new situation for Muslims to be minorities. And this is completely wrong. First, the reality of being Muslims and living in societies where the Muslims were not a majority, something that was the reality in Europe, in Spain, and in India, and so many African countries. So being a minority and dealing with an environment which was not per se Islamic is not something which is new for Muslims. And more importantly, the idea that anything that is coming from the West is alien to Islamic, the Islamic mindset or the Islamic psyche or even the Islamic references, is completely wrong. And especially when the Muslims were falling into the trap of saying, you know, at the end of the day, what is here a problem is that the Muslims are living in the West, not understanding the secular environment, and being alien to the history, the mentality, and the Western identities. So when we come to this first statement, we should question the statement per se, because what was called the Judeo-Christian civilization is in fact a wrong name, a wrong label, something which was constructed after the Second World War just to make it clear that the Jewish contribution and the Jewish presence was welcome after what happened and the extermination of Jewish population during the Second World War in Germany and in other countries around in Europe. So this is first something which is a recent construction, a cultural construction, and a way to deal with the European identity and the Western identity. And if you listen today to some of the leaders in the Middle East who are targeting the Muslims and targeting, for example, in Palestine, what they are saying is really, we are at the forefront of the Judeo-Christian civilization resisting Muslims. And the second point, which is also important to remember here, is that this construction is all, and it was to include the Jewish dimension and to exclude the Islamic participation and the Islamic identity, which historically is completely wrong. If you come to the construction of the European and the Western psychology, history, mindset, identity, you will find the Islamic contribution very, very important and very, very deep, and a thorough participation of the Islamic thought, Islamic religious thought, scientific thought, and in so many human sciences as well. So when we understand this, when we understand that this participation is not new and it's very old, and that the reality of the European and the Western civilization is Judeo-Christiano Islamic, we understand here that this new construction, which tries to exclude the Muslims from the game, from the identity, is something which is ideologically driven. It's to put you outside, and then to come, and when we speak about Islam, it's to speak about, you know, something which is strange, which is foreign, which is external to the reality of the West. This is one. Second, we speak about Islam when it comes to immigration. And third, we speak about Islam when we talk about insecurity and violence and extremism. So when we are dealing with this, and we see now how the far-right ideologies, and not only the far-right, by the way, now it's really something that we find in all the political parties around the Western countries. You have it in the States, we have it in Canada, you have it in European countries, you have it in Australia. This way of dealing with this issue is just revealing something which is a deep crisis within the Western civilization, not knowing how to define itself, not knowing what is part of it and what is outside, and how to deal with the other, so to speak. So this is why we have to come with a clear understanding of not only our principles, not only our faith, not only our references, but also our history, but also the history within which we are now involved, and we have been involved for decades, for centuries. And if we don't get this, we're going to be lost in, marginal discussions where the essential is not there. Trying and being involved and falling into the trap of saying, you know what, I'm going to try to be accepted by this society, and in order to be accepted or to be tolerated, what we end up doing is just to try to smooth, to show how kind we are, that we are not so strict with our convictions and our principles, in order to be accepted. Oh, there is no difference between you and us, it's all the same. And at the end, the way we want to normalize our presence is just not by being integrated, which is a word which is loaded here, but to be assimilated, meaning you are losing your principles in order to be accepted by the surrounding society. On the other side, we can just waste your time responding to the people who are against. So in order to be with, you forget who you are. In order to be against, you just waste your time dealing with enemies or people who are rejecting you, and this is where we are. And we keep on talking about Islamophobia. Yes, there is something called racism against Muslims. Yes, there is Islamophobia. But now we have to understand that if we are obsessed with it and we are just struggling against, we are not working on who we are and the deep legacy within which we have to blossom, to nurture our identity. It's just against. So here we are for losing ourselves, and here we are against, and we are responding to attacks. And in both situations, we are defining ourselves through the eyes of the others. And this is what I call the double alienation. Alienation means when you think about yourself through the minds of the other. But double alienation is when you end up thinking about yourself through the eyes of the others, and then what is said about you, you think it is coming from them and not coming from you. And we have to liberate ourselves from this mindset. We have to try to understand in which way it's important today to come to the deep understanding of our references and our role in the West. So in the series of this discussion about what are the responsibility of the Muslim in the West, it's important to start from the very beginning to understand in which way we have to position ourselves in the West. And I have been talking about this now for decades, and sometimes being misunderstood, and at the same time it's not always acknowledged in the way I wanted for us Western Muslims to be clear and faithful to our principles and consistent with our principles, while at the same time understanding the environment within which we have to navigate as citizens in our country. So this is something which it's important, and the starting point is this process of liberating our minds, liberating and creating a mindset where we are not going to be defined by the others when we are trying to be accepted by them, or by the others when we are responding to them and reacting to what they say. The starting point is really about ourselves, is really about who we are. And in the first book I wrote about this, Muslims in Secular Societies, the subtitle was Responsibilities and Rights of Muslims in the Secular Societies. So this is also something which is important in our understanding is, as Muslims, we start first with our responsibility. between us and God, between Allah, God, and myself, there is a contract, al-mithaq al-awwal. So this mithaq is, I will try to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my capacity, to be faithful to this relationship to God, to my belief, and to try to do my best to respond to His call. So this is the spiritual dimension which is important. There is this contract, this relationship that I have with God. Having said this, which is the starting point of everything in my relationship with God, what I also have to understand is that wherever I am, I'm going to deal with human beings. And between them and me, between me and them, there will be contracts, and there will be social contracts if you come back to what Rousseau was writing in the 80s. But we find it already in what Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, Siyasa Shar'iyya, he was dealing with. And when we have to construct our relationship with the social setting through laws and through regulation, and there is a contract. And as the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Al-Muslimun anda shurutihim, so the Muslims are respectful, and they have to respect, and they respect their contract. So my first contract, of course, as a believer, is the contract I have with God. And then I have contracts, plural, with human beings, and be them Muslims or not, or be them Muslims or people of other faith or with no faith, as soon as I am dealing with my fellow human beings, we have contracts and we have rules and regulations that we have to respect. In the name of my faith, I respect the rules. And this helps us to understand the first principle, which is important. And very often we are asked, and the question is driving us towards something which is not always understood by Muslims and not translated the right way by Muslims, which is, when I am a Muslim living wherever throughout the world, and now as we are talking about the West, in the West, my relationship to God is essential for me and defines me first. And then I have to deal with my brothers and sisters in humanity, and then I have to try to navigate within history and through history and within societies and culture and try to find my way. So when you are asked, are you first a Muslim or are you first an American or a French or a British or an Australian or Canadian, this question, if you look at it, it's a silly question. And you have to respond to this by saying, look, when I'm facing my death, when I'm facing the meaning of my life, and the meaning of my life is the starting point of everything, because it's the meaning of my death that is giving me and bringing the meaning of my life. And then as I'm responding to the call of God, and this call is essential for me, first, what is defining me is my belief in God, of course. And this is shared and understood by all the believers, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and even Hindus and Buddhists. Whoever has a concept of life, this comes first. And I'm defining myself through this belief and the principles that are coming out of this belief as defining me. Now, I live here. And as I'm living here, I have to deal with the reality of my nation, of my tribe, if it's a tribe. But here comes my citizenship. And my citizenship is going to help me through the laws, and by respecting the laws, to deal with my brothers and sisters and my fellow citizens where I live. And then never my passport is going to give meaning to my life, but the meaning I give to my life is going to help me to be a better citizen. So instead of saying, are you respecting a Sharia, which is the way towards faithfulness to God, or respecting the law of the country, you have to respond, in the name of my faith, in the name of my principles that are, I belong to these principles first, I have to respect the law of the country as long as they are not asking me, or it's not requested from me to act against my principles. So in all the Western societies, freedom of conscience is essential. It means that, yes, you have laws that are giving freedom to people to do whatever they want. They can drink alcohol, they can do whatever they want. You might not agree with this, but you are not obliged to do this. So this is your freedom of conscience. As soon as you have this, as to the principles and the fundamentals, what is important for you is to say, okay, look, I belong to my principles, and my belief in God is telling me, requesting from me, commanding me to respect the law of the land. And to respect the law of the land, in Arabic there is, al-iltizam wal-ihtiram. Iltizam is that I respect out of my social contract. Ihtiram means I love them. No, I am not obliged. And no one is obliged to love the law of the country or all the laws of the country. But you deal with it and you abide by them in the way you are to deal with the social environment. So this is the first point. And when I was with Amartya Sen in Greece one day, and I kept on repeating this story, they say, when people are asking you, what are you first? It's a silly question. If you are a vegetarian and if you are a poet, you can be both. So when you go to eat, it's not the time to say that you are a poet. And when you come to recite your poetry, it's not the time to say that you are vegetarian, depending on the context, which is exactly what we are saying. When I'm facing my death, I'm a Muslim and my principles are essential. Now, my principles are defining my concept of life and my way of life. Now, when it comes to dealing with my society, I'm a citizen. I abide by the law of the country out of respecting my contract and my social contracts, which once again is not something which is new. It came in the 18th century with the philosophy of the enlightened philosophers, but it was something that we can find in the Islamic tradition in the 9th century, 10th century, and then 12th century and 13th century. So it's something which is old, which is not new. Having said this, and solving the problem of our identity and what comes first, what we also have to say is that we understand this from the Islamic tradition itself. How? Ash-Shatibi was helping us by defining the two periods and saying that there is the Meccan period and the Medinian period. And the first one was coming with the overall principles when it comes to believe in God, know that your life has meaning, that there is life after life, all this. So these are the principles. Or in the context of Mecca, it was to settle, it was to put the foundations. Now, the revelations that came afterward in Medina were much more dealing with, okay, now you have settled in Medina, you are constructing and building social dynamic. So first it was to build an identity out of your belief, and then is to settle and to put the foundation of a society with a social dynamics. Here you have overall principles, here you have detailed regulations. It's the same message, but the methodology is different. Meaning here that as Muslims, of course, we have to know the principles and the foundation of our references as Muslims, and we have to be faithful. The point is, and this is very critical, not to compromise with our principles in the name to be involved in social dynamics. No, quite the opposite. To be faithful to our principles, to play a role in the social dynamics. And in the social dynamics and regulations is how you deal with this, and you understand that from the very beginning. The Quran, the revelation itself is telling you it's the same message here with the understanding of the principles and the overall principles. there with the practical implementation. So you need to know your society. You need to know how Medina is working and how what are the dynamics between the tribes and between the authority and domination and the market and the social realities and the cultural realities. So when you have to deal with this, you understand that this is where you as citizen you have to deal with this reality. Now when you say this and you understand these two things, you come back to our reality as Western Muslims. And this is where the point, as I said, and just to try to summarize here as a first step, we should not define ourselves for or against. We should define ourselves from within. And this is where, from the beginning, I was saying 40 years ago, I'm not promoting something which is the right to be different. No, it's just the right to be oneself. So the right to our own identity, not to define ourselves as being different, but to define ourselves as being who we are from within, from where we start with our principles. Now when we say this as Muslims, is not for or not against, is to define our identity with our belief in God and our references and our principles, knowing that first we belong to our principles. And then comes the second dimension, which is in the name of these principles, I abide by the law of the land, and I'm active within the society, and I'm trying to contribute. So contribution is the essential word. All this discussion, about integration, this discussion that happened between Malcolm X, Malik Shabazz, rahimahullah, and Martin Luther King, just at the end they came and they were very close about integration. What Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, was saying is that, don't tell us that we need to be citizens. We have been citizens for centuries, so the question is not about integration. And integration through the law doesn't mean anything as long as the dominant has not integrated us in his mindset and his understanding of the society. So the question is not the legal integration as Martin Luther King was thinking and trying to translate this into reality. It's only at the end of his life and through what happened in Vietnam that he understood that what they are doing to the Vietnamese is exactly what they are doing to the black people, meaning it's not a question about the law, it's a question about the perception of who is one of us and who is not. So instead of focusing on integrating the legal framework, it's integrating the self-perception of the West. And as long as the dominant are keeping on saying, you Muslims are outside, you Muslims are mainly immigrant, you Muslims are a problem, and your presence is a problem out of extremism and violence, this mindset is just showing that at the end of the day, if we are not cautious with this, you might abide by the law but still being perceived as foreigners and strangers within the society. Now, having said this and understanding this, that it has to do with psychology, it doesn't have to do with only with the legal framework, it has to do with our psychology. What I called in the 90s, we need to have, we Muslims, an intimate integration of the Western, meaning we feel at home. This is home for you. This feeling which has to do with psychology, this psychological revolution means what exactly? It means that when we deal with the West, instead of acknowledging what is said about us, here you have to be accepted and here you are going to be rejected. He said, no, I'm not going to come to this. I'm not going to fall into that trap. I'm going to define myself, my own definition, my own understanding, my own principles, my own history, my own texts and vision. And when you say this, it's the right to defining one's identity is essential for us. It's essential for us because this is where I say, okay, you know what? My main responsibility, it's not to to be accepted. It's not to reject or to oppose or to resist. My main responsibility when I come back to the scriptures, to Al-Quran wa Sunnah and the Hadith, is to be witness to the truth before human beings. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. In order for you to be witness before people. This testimony, الشهادة على الناس, means that instead of starting with the second realities and the second field, instead of starting with the Medinian mindset, which is we are settling within the society, we come back to the first. And the first say, okay, look, I have a vision, I have an understanding of the meaning of my life, and what is expected from me, what God is expecting me and asking me and requesting from me to be within the society is لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. And then the beginning of the verse, it's important. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We made you a nation, or a nation of the middle path. And you know, the scholars, the ulama, when they come to some of there are two things that are influencing the way they translate the terminology. The first one has to do, of course, with their own understanding and the time they are living in, which is, okay, al-wasat means in between two extremes, and in our times what we had al-wasatiyya was mainly to say, you know, we have to avoid ad-dawaban, which is to be lost within the society and assimilated to something which is not us, or to be dogmatic and to reject everything, being literalists. So between the two, we are following in the footsteps of the middle path. But in fact, al-umma al-wasata, so the middle path, is something which is deeper than that. It has to do with our concept of life. It's something which has to do with, you know, we are individuals, but we are living within a community. So it's balancing and finding al-wasat, al-tawazun between, which is the balance between being an individual, being part of the community, not to be lost within the community, but not also to be an individual falling into individualism. So it's also to be part of, I'm part of a nation, yes, and I have to love my country, but my love of the country should not be at the price of my principles, between belonging and principles. The cosmos, nature around you, this is something which is so important. So it's respect yourself and respect humanity, but not at the price of disrespecting nature. So nature and humanity, nature and culture, also something which is essential. The middle path is not only between two extremes, it's about everything. It's a sense of harmony, it's a sense of balancing and finding a way where things are coming together in the right place, in balance, with a kind of equilibrium, which is reaching peace. Peace for a human being, it's about finding harmony, it's trying to find a balance. And then you are a community of this middle path. And as the middle path, what you have to do is to be witness to the message before human beings. Meaning what? You live in the West, and the West are so much obsessed with my rights, my individual rights, and individualism, that you have to come say, no, not at the price of the community, not at the price of your fellow human beings, not your interests before everything. Balance. It's, oh, we need to have, you know, comfort and in this consumerist society, we want to buy. No, be careful, not at the price of destroying nature. We want science and technology, that's fine, but not at the price of the ends and the goals and the the respect of human beings, not in the name of post-humanism, promoting a technology that is dehumanizing people, balancing. So I should be a witness of this message in the West. My point here is not to try to convert the people. My mission on earth is not to convert the people. The Prophet ﷺ was not able to do it with his own uncle. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. You're not going to convert who you love. ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء. But God is guiding whoever He wants. It's not of your business. It's none of your business. أفأنت تكره الناس حتى يكونوا مؤمنين. Are you coming here to oblige the people, to constrain the people to believe? No. If God had will, all the people who would have believed on earth, that's none of your business. You are not here you don't have the keys of the hearts, but you have a role to play within the society. Be a witness. Be a witness doesn't mean that you are going to be perfect. No, the question is not to be perfect. The question is not to pretend to be perfect. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to fail. You are going to be just a human being. So acknowledge this. And your dignity is not to pretend to be perfect. It's the way you stand up. It's the way you try to be a better human being. It's through tawbah, through coming back to God, through acknowledging your failures, acknowledging your setbacks, acknowledging your weaknesses, and trying to be a better human being. The best human being is not the perfect human being, because the perfect human being is not a true human being. It's not a human being. It doesn't exist. The best human being is the one who acknowledges with humility the fact that he's trying his or her best on earth. Now, when you come to this and say, okay, instead of trying to define myself through a double alienation, what they think about me, and the way they are trying to make me lose my principles, and the way they are attacking me and they are pushing me to react, at peace with my own self, at peace with my principles, at peace with who I am, I'm trying to define myself and trying to set the foundations of my presence in the West, and understanding in which way I am a Western Muslim. Now that we are saying this, and that we are trying to deal with it in such a way which is important for us, is the starting point of this reality in the Western society. So we come back and we try to define ourselves and say, okay, to be a witness. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. Now, you understand that you are changing all the debate, and you are reconsidering and questioning the questions that are put to you, and say, okay, are you going to integrate? I don't care about integration. The best integration, the best state of integration is to stop talking about integration. It's be part of the society. We have to do our work. We have to work through the double dimension that we are dealing with, our principles here, and then also understanding the society. Having said this, if you want to be a witness in the West, it's important to start here with, as I said, our rights, our duties, our responsibilities, and then to understand our rights. And our responsibilities are manifold. Let me just highlight some of the responsibilities that we have when it comes to our way of dealing with the surrounding society in the West. If we understand that we want to contribute, that we want to be an added value within the society, this is what is expected from us in our book, wherever you are. As soon as you say, La ilaha illallah, there is no God and deity but God, and I believe in Him where I am, I should be an asset. I should be an added value. I should contribute to the better, to the best and to the better within the society with Muslims and people of other faiths. So this is my understanding. So at one point, with this intellectual revolution in our understanding, so what I'm saying here, stop wasting your time trying to be accepted and tolerated. It means that you are forgetting who you are. Stop being obsessed with reacting to Islamophobia. Yes, you have to highlight discrimination, racism, and rejection, but this is part of a global picture, a bigger picture. It couldn't be your work. You need here to understand that you fall into the trap if this is where you think that you are promoting the rights of your fellow Western citizens and Western Muslim citizens. Now, when it comes to the reality of our involvement, the first responsibility, it's to know ourselves. To know ourselves is really something which is the starting point. And this is where you come to the Islamic tradition. You come, once again, this is where you find all the trends, all the tradition, Sunni and Shia, and all the schools of thought, all the schools of law, all the different ideological trend that when it comes to believing in one God, this Tawheed, which is the starting point of everything. Once again, the true teaching of Islam starts with the Tawheed in everything. It's true for the literalists, it's true for the reformists, it's true for the Sufi, the very understanding of there is one God. So this understanding is that in which way I'm trying to connect and reconnect wherever I am to His presence in my heart, as He is, that Allah works is between me and myself. So coming to my heart is coming back to Him. This intimate pilgrimage is at my level exactly what the great pilgrimage, Al-Hajj, is for my life. It's coming to the center in order to come back to God. So this reality, the reality of Al-Hajj, the reality of coming back to At-Tawheed, the centrality, the axis mundi, as Mircea Eliade is saying, which is once again what we find in everything when it comes to all the tradition, whatever the debates that Ibn Taymiyyah had with Abu Hamid al-Ghazali coming from different trends, it's something which is, they agree on this. And this is what we can find even in Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, Manahij al-Salikin, when he's speaking about this, he's reconnecting even Abu Hamid al-Ghazali and Ibn Taymiyyah in the divergences when it comes to some issues. So this reality of being centered, having this relationship with God, is know yourself, know your principles, and know that they are fundamentals, they are not going to change. And this is not disputable. So if someone is going to tell you, we have to discuss your faith in one God, no discussion. We are going to discuss the fact that you have to pray 5 times a day, no discussion. You might decide not to pray, but if I want to pray, I pray. I fast. I respect the 5 pillars of what is the external dimension of the Islamic practice, and then the internal dimension, the intimate dimension with Arkan al-Iman, the 6 pillars of faith, and then more importantly, the prohibitions and the obligations are part. So know yourself. Know. Now, your decision about practicing or not, and be careful, don't say I'm practicing only when I'm starting praying. As soon as you start doing good, as being conscientious and being aware that it has to do with your belief in God, you are already a practicing Muslim. And then comes step by step the rituals and everything. So this is something which is, if you want to be defined by yourself, to be liberated from the surrounding environment, talking about you, defining you, deciding for you, you have to start with this self-education. And self-education is of course, knowing your references, knowing the principles, knowing the priorities, and not being misled by, some are completely negligent about the principles of fasting, or praying and fasting, and then they are very, very tough when it comes to halal meat and when it comes to something which are secondary issues. But it means that in fact their minds are colonized because they are reacting on secondary issues, because these come from the society driving you towards the secondary issues in order to make you forget the essentials. So when it comes to some of the problems in the way we dress, in the way we eat, all this is important, but there are things that are more important than others and more essential. So this is what we have to do when it comes to ourselves. Now, these are the principles, and if I come to the reference to Ash-Shatibi that I made before, is really the understanding of what was taught in the Meccan period. And that's important. And that's important because, once again, wherever you are, yes, your relationship with God is the way you are going to create, to build, to nurture a relationship to yourself, to your father, and to your mother, to your family, and not only this, with nature, not only this, with the poor people. So these are principles that are beyond your nationality, beyond your citizenship. Wherever you are going to be involved in supporting the poor, helping the needy people, respecting your parents, respecting the law of the land, all what I said before. Now, when this is part of a process, it's not I start with this, it's I start with this understanding that this has to be also, we have to add to this another dimension. You live in Western countries, and it's important to acknowledge the fact that there are languages. So instead of, okay, to be a good Muslim, I should come back to the Arabic, yes, coming back to the Arabic, knowing the text, and trying to be able to read the text through the original language, through Arabic, it's essential. Yeah. But at the same time, exactly like the Prophet, peace be upon him, was dealing with Arabic, and then he went to an Arabic country, an Arabic city and a town, Medina. He had to deal with the specific culture of the Ansar, the people of Medina. He had to deal with the social dynamics and social fabric. We have to understand this, that with our mindset and being people of here, being people living here in the West, we need to acquire, we need to get the vocabulary, the way we speak, the way we translate. Very often, Muslim scholars and Muslim intellectuals are using the translation of some of the words that are coming from the West, from Orientalists. Okay, they speak about verses in the Quran, while the true word is signs, because ayah doesn't mean verses. This is coming from the Bible. Some are still, up to now, translating jihad by holy war. It has nothing to do with holy war. So these are, media terminology. But there are so many things about nafs, about al-maut, about all the terminology, the way we have to translate this into English or into French, into Spanish, into the Western languages. If you want to understand the message of Islam, for your context, you should be able to translate the principles and to translate the objectives into the language of your society. Exactly the way it happened during 13 years getting the foundations, and then 10 years to implement. So it's the same revelation, but with two different dimensions, two different methodology. You need to get this. If the Prophet, peace be upon him, had to understand in which way the details were going to be implemented, it means, okay, you got the overall principles. Now you need to get the practical implementation. You have to do exactly the same, getting the principles and knowing how we are going to deal with the society. And the first challenge is language, is knowing how to translate, knowing how to deal with your um, uh, language of communication, your daily language. And this is still something that it's improving. Yes, we have many sisters and brothers now being, they can speak English, Arabic and English, Arabic and French, Arabic and Spanish, Arabic and many Western languages. But still, it's not only about the translation and the literal translation. Language has to do with the very meaning of a word and the contextual definition of it in a specific period of time. So this is also something which is important. And to be able to do so, you need to feel at home. Unfortunately, you have many converts to Islam or revert to Islam who are Arabizing themselves. Instead of helping the Muslims to get the language, they are coming back to Arabic as if there is an inferiority complex. Not knowing Arabic means that there are not going to be enough Muslims. No, you can be a deep, a profound, a sincere Muslim, not knowing Arabic, and you can speak Arabic and be betraying your religion day in and day out. Now, language, it's important, and this is a step. More than this, and then with the language, you understand that you are not going to get the language if you don't get the social dynamics around you. How does it work? And to understand the cultural dynamics and the social fabric, you need to understand that to have a complete Islamic education is about texts and context. It's when you read the Quran, if you don't understand why, sometimes you have to go, oh, is this a verse that was revealed in Mecca or in Medina? The context, the intelligence of the context is changing the intelligence of the text. So if you don't get this, if you don't understand at one point that you have to do this work, as it was done by the Prophet ﷺ and by the Ansar and by the Al-Muhajirun, all these understanding and trying to get it. So first understanding the message, then trying to translate this, the vocabulary, it's in my context, in my situation, and more importantly, when I live in a society where the people don't speak Arabic, I have to be able and not let the Orientalists telling me what are the right words and what are the right translations. And sometimes, by the way, some Orientalists are closer to the right meaning of some of the words and concepts than some Muslims who are superficial in this. So, vocabulary, terminology, semantics, and then societies and the cultural setting and the cultural dimension. Here you understand that you have to do this, and this is part of our. So it means in order to be a witness, to get these knowledges, to get this, the understanding of the principles, the understanding of the vocabulary and the language, the words through which you are going to make it accessible, because the Quran is coming from this. And this is the way where, once again, you are a witness. And this is the true meaning of da'wah. By the way, da'wah, it doesn't mean that you are trying to convert the people, as I said. It's just Udu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah. Call to the way of your Lord, the way of God, with wisdom. Your wisdom is the way you are going to bear witness to the truth. And how are you going to be wise in a society you don't know the language and you don't know the cultural setting and the social fabric and the dynamics with it? So you need to get this. You can't understand, for example, in which we are going to deal, for example, with the extermination of the Jews during the Second World War in Europe, for example. If you don't get the reality and say, okay, I'm part of this, I'm part of this dynamic, I'm part of what was really the European history. And then you can challenge even the way some were trying to translate this into something which was a sacrality of what happened during the Second World War. The extermination of the Jews during the Second World War is not the Shoah. Shoah is a term coming from the Old Testament that was put in a specific period of time just to sacralize. But you're going to show the people that you are ready to talk as they are talking, not understanding that there is a kind of a historical manipulation in calling it Shoah. No, we call it the way it should be called: extermination and genocide. Yes, that's fine. This is the project. This was the project. But to try to use terminology that are not part of something which is an objective deal, an objective way to deal with the history, this is where we are going to be misled. If you don't master, if you don't know this, you are going to be instrumentalized or lost in the way you deal with this issue. Now, this has to do with knowing the society and then knowing the language within the society. Be part of the society is knowing the language, knowing the history, and knowing the history to go and to know better the language. And the language, once again, is not only definitions, is the cultural dimension, is the cultural outreach of some notions and some concepts. The third thing which is essential in our way of being a witness is to know history. So, I've been saying, oh, the Muslims are new in the West, and as I said, European Muslims in the Balkan and in Sarajevo, Mustafa Ceric, the old Mufti and the previous Mufti in Sarajevo, was saying, what are you talking about? We are European, we have been Europeans for centuries, so don't come and tell us that we are new in this. And once again, as I told you, Muslims as minority, what is new is not Muslims as minorities, is Muslim within the secular setting, which is, okay, when the religious reality was put aside, and there is this separation between the religion or the religious principles and the secular law, the secular or secular politics, the separation. This is new, yes, but being in this situation is not new for Muslims, and they have been dealing with this in India, in China, in African countries, even in Europe during the 40s, and we have fatwa dealing with this situation in the Middle Ages. So now that we are saying this and that we understand, we need to get a sense of history, because, as I said, this Judeo-Christian reality in the West, and once again, in the discussion that I had with Ratzinger, the cardinal at that time, before he became the Pope, was to say, he was trying to say, it's a Greek and Roman and Judeo-Christian. That's wrong. This is a construction. Islam is part of it and has been a part of it for centuries. Now, we need to understand this history in order to refuse to be put outside and to be alienated or to be excluded, and to understand the long history of the Muslim presence and the Muslim contribution to the West. More importantly, it's also over the last centuries the presence of the Muslims, African American Muslims, who were present in the United States and within the dynamics. In Europe, exactly the same. Eastern Europe, and not to fall into the trap of saying, there is a Europe of the dominant, a Europe of the rich people and the wealthy people, and a marginal Europe with the Balkans and this is not acceptable, and this is once again a construction that if you don't know history, if you start as if now you are starting to push something which appears to be new and it's old, you are reinventing the wheel, and that's not the way forward. It's not. And then with this, you understand that wherever you are, knowing your principles, knowing your uh, references, who you are, getting and mastering the language, understanding the social dynamics where you live, and understanding history. So, history is your memory, principles are your foundation. The social dynamics are the way through which you are going to navigate with your principles in order to be consistent with your principles. This is where now you're going, and this is where you have to deal with getting this balance, getting al-wasat, which is, okay, I'm going to try to find peace with this, to create and to compose and to shape a kind of harmony, a harmonious presence as a Western Muslim. And this is where, when you get this, you understand that you have, wherever you are, to be an added value, as I said, and to come to something which is, okay, you say La ilaha illallah, and then kuntu khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnat. You are the best community set for humanity, in as much as, with the condition that you promote what is right and you resist what is bad, and you believe in God. So it's not visible for the people that you believe in God, but what is visible for the peoples is wherever you are an agent for good and resistant to what is bad. This presence means that at the local level, it's very important to understand this, that when you pray at the local level, you have this vertical and profound relationship with God. And then a zakat straight away, it's for the people around you. So you have a presence which has to do with the transcendence and your immanence. Your presence here is you have to be good for the people around you. So this is where you need to understand that our presence and our way of being witness, a witness, women and men, is to show what is good within the society and to promote what is good and to resist. It's in fact because in Islam there is salam, and salam is one of the names of God, it's one of the names of paradise. It's also part of the roots of the term Islam, is that we are agents of peace. Agents of peace is not just to be pacifist and peace and love as in the 60s. No. Agents of peace is to promote what is good, but when we see what is bad, we resist what is bad, and we are ready for it. We are ready when we see injustices to say no to injustices, no to exploitation, no to discrimination, no to violence, no to killing the people, no to killing innocent people. So our way to promote peace is to promote the good, and wherever we are, to help the poor, to help the needy, to respect nature, to respect people of other faiths, people with no faith, to respect humanity, and at the same time to resist. And this has to be done at the local level. So this is also important when we see today with, the election, Mamdani recently in New York, and some others throughout the Western countries are mayors, and they are trying their best. It's important to work at the local level. The best thing for Mamdani is that he cannot run for presidency in the States. That's the best thing that could happen to him, because it means, okay, as he said once, I'm going to focus on New York and do my work. And once again, instead of being, and people around him are celebrating, and we can understand that they are celebrating, he needs help now, and he needs to be surrounded by people who are helping him to have what is needed for our struggle as Western Muslim. And I will end with this. First is consistency, and to remain consistent is not an easy task, and especially when you have some power. Power corrupts, and this is known, and this is why you have to be very cautious not to expose yourself on your own, but be surrounding and be accompanied by people who are helping you just to be faithful to your principles, to be consistent. It's not easy. And to avoid something which is essential when you have some power is arrogance, which is um, the first sin, so to speak, which is to forget, and after to forget, to think that I can make it on my own. So it's the opposite of humility. Consistency and humility are essential, and this is where instead of only celebrating the election, now it's time to help the direction, to help to implement at the local level. And this is important. Have been talking about national movement of local initiatives. So this is where you have to work, and this is where all the principles that we have at the very beginning, as salah, zakah, siyam, it's at the local level. Care about your neighbors, care about the people around you, care about the human beings around you. So this determination is essential. And to be ambitious, it's also essential. And I have seen so many mayors, people being involved in politics, being ambitious, and this is good as long as is out of humility and out of consistency, and out of humility. So this ambition, but at the same time, for the years to come, it's also always to get this sense of how am I going to bring peace where I live? Meaning I need to have the humility and the determination to promote what is good, even if the people around me don't like it. And I have to be courageous enough to resist what is bad, even if the people around me are imposing onto me something which is against my principle or against the principles of justice, when they are exploiting and they are colonizing, or they are killing even people. So these features are essential when it comes to being Western Muslims. So as I said, and I conclude with this, and this is the first teaching, is to be a witness, is how do you define yourself? How do you get a deep understanding of your principles and the way you speak, you communicate, the way you navigate within a specific environment, and then in which way you understand your mission. Your mission is not to convert. Your mission is to be a witness. Take good care of yourself. Don't forget to tell the people you love that you love them, and we'll continue our series week after week, and trying to tackle all the essential issues as a legacy of what I have been writing about for the last 40 years. Peace be with you.